Hey everybody, welcome to Movies We're Talking About, where we talk and talk and talk about movies. I am John Carlos, and today I am joined by, for the first time, the founder and executive director of the Frida Cinema, Orange County's only nonprofit art house cinema, Logan Crow.
Hello.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
coming
having.
on.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's been how long has the Frida been around for?
It'll be 10 years in February,
So
which
10
is
years I've known
just
you. Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. And it's
Yeah.
just which is surreal. But yeah, 10 years next month, next year.
Yeah.
Feels like
I,
this.
the Frida has been name dropped in this show many, 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 many times. Anytime I'm talking about a movie, and if I saw the Frida, blah 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 blah. So now it's fun to actually have you on to put a
Thanks, man.
face to the name that's been mentioned. Um, Anytime I have a guest on for the first time, where I go, "Oh, I want to talk to someone about something," there's always the initial text message of, "What movies do you like?" Vomit them out to me, and then I will, Uh, Forbidden Zone not only was on your list, but if I'm not mistaken, in your personal list, it is very high up, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's one of my top three in Letterboxd, if memory serves. But this is easily one of my favorite movies.
That's pretty like
So
top three is huge.
I'm, it's how with everyone that has films they love, that top five is so fluctuating. But there's just some movies that I just know are just always going to be amongst my all-time favorites, and Forbidden Zone's easily up there. Just love this movie.
Interesting. Yeah, I have a top four that is rock solid, and
Yeah.
then everything underneath it kind of fluctuates a bit.
Even my top three, like it's yeah, no, absolutely. I hear you. I hear you. It's hard because then you'll remember something else and you remember some elements of something else, and you'll be like, God, but might that be one of my top three favorite films? Like just recently I was watching Midnight Cowboy, and I adore Midnight Cowboy. It's easily in my top 10, let's say. But I'm like, might I love Midnight Cowboy more than these other? It's just that dialogue continues. The struggle is real.
Hmm.
But Forbidden Zone is just it's a movie I can throw on anytime and just feel good about the world. Just sort of everything just melts away. It's a world I like to step into for whatever sick and zany reason.
I think because it's so sick and zany, it's I don't want to say comforting, but like, and we'll get into it, but like there's something about when the first time I watched it where like this is gonna sound maybe a little weird at first, but I went like, oh, like this is home. Like there's something about the fact that it's not so driven by narrative, it is so just off the wall and like what the fuck about it, that there's a spirit to it that
Yes.
I find calming and reassuring.
It's it's weird as you were describing the spirit and everything that it an analogy just came to my head. It is not obviously drawing a very loose parallel, but it stopped making sense as a narrative film. In other words, it is watching a bunch of artists at play and being experimental and doing things they love musically, sketch wise, performance artist wise, and just having fun for 80 plus whatever it is minutes. Because these are all artists. They're either musicians or they're performing. I mean, all obviously performers are artists, but I mean, these are people from troops. These are friends and family members, who are just just having fun with the craft, with sets, with all of it. It's just so avant-garde and experimental and weird, and it wears this weirdness on its sleeve. It seems to just be fearless, and it's there's just so much I can say about this movie, especially considering on the surface how zany and silly it is. I respect it like crazy.
Well, yeah, there's something about, like you said, the artist where I don't think anyone, even a fan, I don't think anyone watches this movie because they really emotionally are on some journey about, oh, is the king gonna invade our dimension? We better stop him. Like,
Right.
gosh, I really hope they rescue Frenchie.
Yeah.
Like it is the spirit of passionate people getting literal like paintbrushes and making these sets and putting on a show for you. And that's what I think I'm here for, less so than, you know,
Yeah, and we've
How things
done,
going to work out with the Queen and the King or not.
we had reached out to the director, Richard Elfman, before the Frida, when I was programming at the art, to do a shadow cast, and that ended up being a situation where Richard came down and played two of the characters himself and his brother Danny's role in the movie. And then we've done two more shadow casts with Richard, and I've kept up with Richard, and I can safely say, having gotten to know him, this is Richard Elfman's brain as a film. It's so much about the things that happen in the film and the style of the film and the mood of the film, the music, the elements, the sort of like frenetic scene to scene jumping and editing. I mean, this is his brain, you know, um, in so many ways. And we get into the minutia of that, but like it 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 is auteur cinema. I mean, it's basically as much a product of a filmmaker's invention in terms of putting his brain on film as David Lynch's Eraserhead might be. His brain works like this.
Yeah, I've made that connection, not just because it's black and white and weird, but also, yeah, there is. I've always felt there's like a pure. This is like his id on camera, and not everyone gets to do that.
Right.
And also, not everyone chooses to do. There's nothing wrong with this, but there are some directors, some very successful, very talented directors who do think about the audience, keeping the audience's experience in mind when they're making it. And then there are some directors who are like, no, this is what I need to tell. And it just so happens that there are this group of people who go, oh, I key into what you want to tell.
Yeah, I mean,
this is for me.
Like the experience I have when I watch either really El Topo or The Holy Mountain by Alejandro Jodorowsky, where part of my brain is going, how did this guy bring all these people together to tell this story? What kind of explanation did he give as to what the product is? And or maybe they don't. Maybe they just pull people in and saying, you do this and you do that, but it is amazing that he's able to pull all these people together and they're all lockstep with the mood and tone of the film. It's one of those movies where at the same time as you can't say it's filled with amazing performances, there is no bad performance in this film. Everyone is doing exactly what the world of this film commands. And so at that level, it's full of amazing performances.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't give an Oscar to anyone in this film, but everyone is doing what the world commands of them to do, to 11.
Yes.
And it's fantastic.
And it's the kind of world that if you had taken any one of these performances and put them in like a quote unquote normal movie, you could argue that's bad acting, or not even acting. I mean, I know I'm terrible with names. I'm always terrible with names on the show, but like Frenchie's definitely her first language is not English.
Right.
So there's a lot of inflections on things that, maybe wouldn't be your first choice for where to inflect that word. Right. But that's the charm. That's the charm of all of it. To me, it's I almost think of it like a litmus test. Like if you can get through the first scene at the dinner table, where Frenchie is saying the words like this at spots, and you go, huh? But then, Flash is he's just, and you're like, that's a choice for those sentences. And if you can get through main characters delivering sentences that actually have like an ABC to them, but the delivery is just G over here.
Right. It's a cartoon. I mean, it's it's a Max Fleischer cartoon. It's there are so many influences in this movie.
So many.
And again, pretty much all of them speak to Richard's influences. But it's throughout the whole thing, it's a cartoon. I mean, people act like caricatures in a cartoon. And they're great at it because everyone is turned to 12 basically in this movie. It's incredible. And have you seen the color version?
Yes.
The color version really even brings that out more, and having sort of had dialogues about this, the approach to the color version. They wanted it to not quite feel like, let's make this look like it was shot in color 100%, but let's add some pastel to it. Let's bring some colors out so that they're bold and brighter, so that it, again, additionally, looks a bit like a cartoon, like,
Yeah.
and feels a little bit both vintage, but also not quite the colors you'd see in the real world. There's just so much intent in this otherwise,
Oh yeah.
again, unhinged movie.
Yeah, there's that shot where we get out of the like the I just it's not what's the last name of the family? Not the Hendersons. That's Renee and Squeeze It.
Hendersons. No, that's Renee and Squeeze It is Hendersons.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the
Right?
name?
I could tell
Yeah,
you Frenchie, Gramps,
Hercules.
Hercules. The
Yeah.
Hercules family. We get out of their house, we go to the Forbidden Zone for the first time, and we have this like I mean, it's actually pretty for the scale of this production, the fact that the camera moves this much, I presume they rented some sort of crane for the day or laid an incredible track, but we track kind of across and we see the princess like whipping these like slaves and
Yeah.
but then it like kind of irises in on Hervé. And you could tell that they only had like a few frames and then they just looped them back and forth. So him just sort of doing this is a loop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's animation though, is you also only animate that movement and then you repeat it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's intentional or if that was like, oh, we only have 5 seconds of film left, better loop it. But
well, there's literal animation in the film.
Oh yeah,
when they're going through the intestinal tract of the journey to the Forbidden Zone, the sets. I mean, the sets are drawn and with no sort of, there's just and out of the way, letting you know everything around these people is drawn. I mean, not the whole movie, but like their house, the walls is blocked with chalk on it, basically. And and then at the dinner table scene at the beginning, the way the kitchen splits up, and they all just slide to different parts of the frame of the film. It blends that sort of animation quality through the whole film. There's something that was drawn somewhere on the movie. I mean, it's just so fascinating.
And there's a charm. I love young, in your 20s, like picking yourself up by the bootstraps, kind of making it happen. And I love the idea that for probably a good chunk of this evening, they had to sit in these chairs and click, and now everyone scoot a little bit, click, and everyone scoot a little bit, click. And I'm sure, well, actually, I don't know if they were tired that night, but I could have a lot of fun just farting around with my friends and then hold it. And then, there's a spirit to all of that to me, it's burned into the film.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it feels like performance art. There's a lot of, I mean, and when the Kipper kids are a perfect example, they're performance artists, they're, it just feels like everyone is doing something performative, but to like, again, to 11 or 12, as opposed to what we would consider acting, which is, what is my motivation? What,
Yeah.
let me deliver the most realistic performance of this role. Let me embody this character and deliver a human being. Everyone is performing and taking it to, and then again, within that, there's play. There's the scene I love with the guy in the Mickey Mouse ears who is singing, but his lips are animated in his mouth, which was, sort of like, what was that show? Pulp Fiction, there's a scene, Clutch Cargo, where they would put a real set of lips inside the animated face, which is, which was an accident. It was on the set accident. Elfman sang the song, didn't like the performance or whatnot. But to make that choice of like, well, rather than bring someone else in, I'm just going to go ahead and put my lips in there, and people will see it. It's not going to be something I'm trying to hide. And it's just one more thing that adds to, oh my God, this movie's insane. There's so much insane stuff going. Every single new number has some kind of visual insanity in it.
Well, because you hold on that guy, and you the first time I ever saw this, I thought for the first few seconds that they were putting the original vocalist's lips, like you're pulling film from another film. But then you see it just sort of flicking its tongue around, and you're like, no, that's just
During
some
a
idiot.
whistle.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
that's like the extra choice on top of a choice, and I
yeah.
just love it. No, the thing, okay, so like the thing about acting that I find, as a form, as an actor, but like it's all about, no matter what, finding the truth of the moment, even
Right.
in heightened realities, right? So even in farce, like even in like The Fifth Element, for example,
Sure.
this exaggerated world, you still have to find the emotional truth of the tone of that world that you're telling. And in this, you could almost say that, like, well, it's just this, it's not. But I would say that this world allows for the degree of insanity in the performances that, in a weird way, that is the truth of the
Sure.
sixth dimension.
Yeah,
Not
no,
even the sixth
absolutely.
dimension, because the world outside of sixth dimension, like
I was,
this, let me put it
I
this
was
way:
going to say, and the real world as well,
the
because
real
when
world
they're
as
in the
well.
kitchen, when they're at
But you know
school,
what? It
yeah,
is it is finding the truth of Richard Elfman's fucked up brain.
yes,
That
absolutely.
and just it comes from everybody. The exterior of the classroom, and these two girls open the trash can. Oh, get a load of this joke, will ya? Like,
Ew. I
come
love
on,
that.
Squeezy, we're gonna be late for class. Like,
Even that guy, yeah, I mean, it's even that guy
everyone.
is just, shows up and is that character. They're all kind of like archetypes. I mean, not everyone, but there's a lot of characters that run in and out of the movie that are caricatures of that guy, that blank in
Yeah.
another movie. So there's always the sort of like, high-waisted skinny jeans, really tightly tucked in shirt, Eddie Diesel type, Diesel type,
Uh-huh.
who's got, that, and that's what that guy is. He's like, come on, Squeeze, we're getting late for class, and he's throwing things up in the air, and it's like, it's there's all these different sort of like recognizable caricatures that people that they just go and again turn it up to 11 to play, and it's just, I think Deason's a perfect example. I mean, he was always at 11, in the movie Rock and Roll High School, in the movies where he played that kind of spazoid geek, but imagine a world of Eddie Deason's, imagine a world of, yeah, absolutely.
And at no point did there's not one performance in this movie where I would say, like, oh, like you showed up and you didn't commit. Oh, it's sort of flat. Like,
No one.
everyone's playing, everyone gets it,
Even
everyone's having a blast.
Viva, who shows up towards the end, she's understated,
Just the right
but
kind of dry.
what's that?
The right kind of dry, though.
But she's the right, exactly. She's understated, but she's the right, and she's talking quickly. I gotta write a screenplay. She's got that whole like quick, and then she, the out of nowhere line. I gotta change the Tampax. I'll be right back. Like it's just, and that's it, and like like in the middle of yeah, it's when it's the most unexpected, which happens. The movie throws things at you out of nowhere, left and right, and I think as I think and sit and talk about it, and I think about how important, because I discovered this movie in high school. I wonder, like, is this cinematic soup for the ADD brain?
I mean, I've never been diagnosed, but I do find it
I mean,
satisfying.
it is it, because I watched this movie so many times in high school, and since, and had the soundtrack, and I would listen to it in my car, and it is spastic and it is nonstop, and it doesn't give your brain time to process what did I just see before something else comes along where it's like, what am I looking at? you know but it's consistently great. The songs are great. They're delivered, many of them, with both an authenticity and attention to quality, but something off. Not all of them, not like the Queen's Witch's Egg is just such a great number. It's a number, and it's, but maybe a voice is off, or maybe there's sound effects, or maybe there's something to the music that Frenchie's accent, whatever it is, Hervé's voice and accent, that makes the song more than just good and catchy, but odd and weird and particularly fun to sing along to, because you sing along in that voice. You make those sounds effects. Driving to high school, or singing in a French accent, whatever it is, and it's so much fun. This movie is just so much fun. But one of those movies you really can't recommend to everybody.
Oh God, no. You have to know, like,
yes,
who's safe to recommend this to,
because it is a movie that not only some people will just be like, that was, what did I just watch? That was, and there's some stuff in there that could affect, that could, there's a lot of nudity. The original, obviously, before Richard put out the color one and reversed it, had a character in blackface at the beginning, and then for a quick shot later in the film, that in the color version he changed. So
clown face. Yeah,
that is in whiteface, and also changed the words he says a little bit as well. But there is profanity, there is a lot of things that some people might take offense to, but if that's not it, for those with an adventurous spirit in cinema, it is a cinematic adventure.
Yeah, it's okay. So I saw this movie shortly after high school. I had been wanting to see it my whole life. Well, not my whole life, almost my whole life. I think, God, I want to say 1993 or 94 is when Danny Elfman put out Music for a Darkened Theater, Volume 1.
Yeah.
And it had the little piano, like, sonata.
Yeah.
And I just remember going, Forbidden Zone. That was Forbidden Zone. I never heard of Forbidden Zone. And I think they also had Face Like a Frog on there, right? Or no, that's something else. Never mind. I'm thinking of Bust Rod. Anyway, I just knew this movie existed. Eventually I saw like a poster and I went, this poster doesn't look like that beautiful piano music.
Right.
What? So I didn't know anything about it. I just remember I was like maybe 18 or 19 years old, and there was a Blockbuster video that wasn't my usual Blockbuster video. And I was just sort of running around the aisle, and it just screamed out at me. And I literally like reached out, grabbed it, and went, oh, finally, took it home, recorded it, because that's what you did. Blockbuster can't come at me now,
No.
But I remember I loved it so much that like the tape label, I actually like recreated the font so that it actually really, it read like Forbidden Zone,
Nice.
Took some time. But anyway, that tape got watched over and over and over again. I don't know if it's just because, it was like a product of, for me, the really early 2000s, and just growing up in that era, you just of everything was so politically incorrect, and South Park and just the stand-up comedy I was taking in. But I just vibed on it, and it never even occurred to me. I'm like, oh no, this is just, like now they're just talking to a rabbi and he's going, oy vey, oy vey, oy vey,
Just 2 shekels. Yeah.
And of course, like there's just a gang of black guys in the classroom.
6th dimension.
Yeah. And of course, like the black guys in the back of the class are gambling, and they're dressed like pimps and stuff. Like, this is just a giant cartoony depiction of things, like it never occurred to me that, like, just random women being topless, these dungeon, like, it's all the impression I got, because I was never offended, was that the intention wasn't to offend. The intention was just to be silly. And as I look back on it now as a grown-ass adult in his 40s, I still kind of go like, well, yes, I see on paper why things in this movie would be considered offensive. And
exactly, on paper. Right.
On paper and out of context. But first of all, even when you intend to not offend, when you put the movie in the world, sometimes it's not, your intentions are gone now,
Right.
Whether that's a good thing of like, this is the point I was trying to make, and your point gets lost and people find new meaning. Or I never meant to offend, but it's like, well, too bad. People are offended.
Right.
But at least you can look at it from a true intention of not like, what's the big deal? But so much as like, no, I was just going for zany. Like I even remember an interview with Richard Elfman where he talked about like, they were asking like, what were you thinking putting like blackface in the movies? Like, I wasn't thinking. I was just
Right.
I'm not trying to even shock you. I was just trying to put in weird shit. And there's a lot of just stuff that comes off maybe now as maybe kind of offensive, but it was intended to be just weird ass, off the wall, random ass shit.
Well, that, and also there's a lot of elements in the movie that are supposed to evoke eras. The
There's so
era,
much Cotton Club, big band jazz,
so much Cotton Club,
30s. Yeah.
So much like Fleischer, that was, so much, Betty Page, there's all these different elements that are evocative of eras of music, eras of style, eras of culture.
Eras that
I
had
think that,
blackface.
what's up?
Eras that had blackface.
And eras that had blackface, exactly. And movies that featured characters in blackface and choreography and whatnot. So I think it's both, again, not thinking, but also pulling together visuals and motifs from these eras and throwing them together in a blender without considering, oh, this one motif could be offensive,
Yeah.
and
Honestly,
plenty. I mean, even just today, someone might criticize the teacher and say you've got a male dressed up as a female teacher for laughs, and that's inappropriate.
yeah,
Again,
you
who
could.
am I to judge that if the person's, then I'm, it's sad that they're offended. But I mean, there's a lot in the film. There's a lot in every film that could be, considered offensive.
And again, I would say I don't think the teacher being played by a man is necessarily funny. It just is. At least
right, and I'm not
I get
suggesting it is, but I'm saying someone might see it that way.
Right.
Like, I think that the teacher is, one of my favorite, if not my favorite character that's not one of the leads. And it is because of her movements, her self-awareness of her gawkiness and how she can play that out. There's just one, it's a shot, and it's probably one of my favorite shots in the movie because it just brings me so much joy. And it's when Frenchie is singing Le Petit Taquinaza in class, and the teacher's like, kind of sort of batoning along. And at one point, she just gets the most mirthful smile, the teacher, and is just like grooving on the music. And that smile, the way she rocks her head, is how the movie makes me feel. Like, just bliss, it's 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 funny too, because I remember, and again, we've I think there's always been a sort of conscious awareness of things, but then we really started to really focus on some things. But I remember when, maybe 14 or 15 years ago, that there was conversation about taking out some of the offensive elements of the film. My response to Richard was, what are those? And I'm thinking, are you gonna maybe put tops on the women? Like, and it didn't even occur to me. It didn't occur to me, that character. Because they're barely in it, the blackface character. But now watching the film, I might, if I was to watch it for the first time today, the original version, be like, oh my God, there's a character in blackface. So we've learned as we come along.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I commend him for making that change. But again, there's a lot that going back to the idea of like, there are some movies that I watch that I love, where it's like, I love this movie, but I think there are some people I could just be like, you should totally watch this, because they'll be able to sort of see through that and be like, okay, I don't think this was meant to offend. Maybe they'll recognize it, but and some way you'll be like, it's great, but hey, just so you know, there's a couple of problematic moments in the movie. Versus this person will never like this movie for a million years.
Oh yeah.
Not because of problematicness, but they just will not like this movie.
This is not,
people think I'm sick. And Blue Velvet's a perfect example. I mean, as you well know, I adore Blue Velvet. I don't recommend that to everyone. I get interviewed a lot and talk about Blue Velvet, and I say and I would say it's not for everyone. just as a caveat of just being aware of that. There are elements of that movie that can be very, very shocking. Yeah, I just adore this movie. I'm sorry, it's playing on my second screen as we talk, just like playing along, and I just keep glancing over at it, just being like, I
Oh, that's
love
fair.
the movie. I love so much about you. Yeah, but my own history was that in high school, I had these friends, Martin and Gunter, who introduced me to Oingo Boingo. And, I just fell in love with Oingo Boingo. And the first CD I ever bought, back when they came in those tall,
Hmm.
paper boxes that, I wish I'd held on to, was Dead Man's Party, Oingo Boingo's album Dead Man's Party. And I, just went to see Oingo Boingo, I think 6 times. And then at some point, I think maybe sophomore year, Forbidden Zone came up. You've never seen Forbidden Zone? And I'm like, no, Boingo Boingo made a movie? Like what? Uh, and they brought the tape over, and that's it. I fell in love. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
was just love at first sight with a movie.
it's I don't want to say like a life changer, but like it's an instant like, oh my God, like scene after
Yeah.
scene, just get in here. Like,
Well, and it's funny because the 3 times we did the Shadowcast performances and screenings, they all sold out. People lost their minds. A lot of people had not seen it. There were people who were cultists around it, but most people, I think, in every show raised their hand that they'd never seen it. And everyone just ate the movie up. But it's not a movie that is still in the sort of pop mass conversation, I don't think. I don't think they talk about like they might Rocky or even Repo or as a musical cult oddity.
or even the
There's two.
there's
Yeah.
certain cult movies that maybe 15, 20 years ago felt more culty, but as time has progressed through either streaming or social media or physical media, like have found a bigger audience. And I go, oh, now there's t-shirts. Oh, now there's
Right,
screenings of
right.
this. Forbidden Zone hasn't really gone that path
No, the
yet. Who
t-shirt you're
knows?
wearing, we made back in the Mondo Celluloid days before the Frida. I mean, because there were no Forbidden Zone t-shirts,
Mhm.
And shout out to Connor Che for making the t-shirt. But like it's you're right. I mean, it just hadn't hit that level of a movie that people write and talk about, which is why, when I sent you my list and you came back with what about Forbidden Zone, I was like 100%, like, please, like this movie. And by the way, Canopy with a Kanopy, is a streaming service that if you are a student, or if you have a library card, you can get for free. And Forbidden Zone is on Canopy. And what I love about Canopy is Canopy really focuses on art films, independent cinema, foreign cinema. They have Criterion films on there. And I just love when I see a movie like Forbidden Zone on there. And I'm like, good, good. Getting some recognition as a work of art. But yeah, anyone that's a student or a library card can get Canopy for free. And I highly recommend to those of you again who are adventurous to watch this movie because it's so great.
Yeah, there's a certain no offense, not to sound hipstery, but like there's a general audience that I go, no, 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 no. But
Right.
if you know someone who likes midnight movies, if they are hip to, for lack of a better term, like a cult midnight movie vibe, uh,
Yeah.
your Rocky Horror types.
Well, even I mean, it's funny, and maybe that's that. I just thought like that'd be an interesting show or an interesting write up or series. But like even beyond cult cinema, there are just some films that like a Tree of Life. Yeah, I absolutely adore Tree of Life. I know who not to recommend that movie to. And it's not because there's anything culty or weird or offensive in Tree of Life. It is just a film that exists in a certain way, and not everyone will want to watch.
Yep.
Under the Skin. There's movies that even beyond cult cinema, beyond oddity, just by the nature of the film itself and its presentation and how it's what it's doing and how it's filmed, you just know is not going to be for everyone. Okay, perfect recent example, Skinamarink.
Mm-hmm.
Skinamarink, I saw and it terrified me. But as I'm watching it, I'm having a conscious awareness of this movie is scaring the crap out of me, people are gonna hate this movie.
Yeah.
They're gonna think it's boring, they're gonna think it's stupid, or they're gonna be like, that was one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. And sure enough, when we played it at the Frida for a week, there were 2 screenings where you could hear a pin drop, and people were walking out and they were like, that was just so, like, the opening night, it felt like was filled with people who were there for the experience and got really freaked out. By day 3, by day 4, a lot of laughter, a couple walkouts, a majority of people saying like, it just did not, I was bored, and it's like,
Yeah.
and I knew that. I knew it when we programmed it. And that's why we had people asking, what'd you think? What'd you think? Like, because I knew, like, people are gonna, and that neither crowd is right. I don't believe that just because I love a movie, people are insane if they don't, or vice versa, right? Art is very, very subjective. But some movies that you love are not going to be for everyone, and vice versa. Some movies that you hate as you're watching it, or you're like, this is horrible, and I bet it's going to do very, very well.
Mm.
I'm sure you've had that experience.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah. I for one was at, I think, probably like maybe day 2 or 3 of Skinamarink, and sure enough, there's one guy next to me who's laughing, and then the 2 people in front of me, after about an hour or so, got up and left.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I fully expected that. And again, that is art. I mean, that's part of what I love about, and art is like, I'm always down to talk about movies that I love with someone else who loves them. Like, I love this conversation, but I really enjoy talking to people who have the opposite opinion of me about a film, because I'm really curious to know.
Oh yeah.
Why? Like, did I miss something, or is there something I didn't consider, or and sometimes there have been conversations where I'm like, I didn't see it in that frame. Now I want to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes where it's like, I just didn't feel what you felt, but that's awesome. Like, thanks for sharing that. What was it recently? The Master. The Master. I was lukewarm on The Master. And then somebody asked me, did you watch The Master? Where was your head framed in the sense of whether or not Philip Seymour Hoffman's character really believed what he was teaching, or was consistently aware that he was a charlatan and a con man? And I'm like, oh, no, he really believed what he was thinking. And he's like, okay, watch it again with the mind frame of, this guy knows he's full of shit. And I did, and I loved the movie. And I've seen it since a couple times and pick up on things that I hadn't picked up on. At the end of the day, I don't know that the movie really spells that out, right? But it made so much more sense to me, and the acting and a lot of it just clicked. If you were to ask me what's your opinion of him, oh, he knows. But it's because I had to reframe my head to consider that he knows, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And then I just love the movie. So it's, those conversations sometimes help too.
They do. There was, I don't want to say infamously, but not to get too into off topic, but the Star Wars prequels. Say what you want about the Star Wars prequels, but there's a lot of people who kind of keyed into them after Dave Filoni kind of explained them to people who hadn't really considered that. Like, no, the Jedi's. If you watch the movie knowing that like the Jedi Order is a bad idea, and that like everything that goes wrong in that movie is like their fault, like, don't just think of it as Jedi's good and Sith bad. Like, people go, oh, yeah.
Right.
Sometimes a little context can help a viewer.
Yeah, I would love to have. You're right. Because that's a whole conversation we could have. But I want to continue to have that conversation with you off because I had an interesting thought about the Jedi as well. But continue.
And now we were talking before about the performances and in the classroom and some of the stereotypes that we see. Not to go like back to it a bit, but like when you look at some of these cartoonish depictions of stereotypes, one of the ones that really, again, none of it fazed me when I was 18 or 19. But then I started getting older, and I listen to the soundtrack a lot. Listen to it in my car on CD. and I'd find myself, singing along to the Yiddish Charleston, and then I realized, wait, what the fuck am I singing?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, holy shit! All right, and then
Which,
it's
for what it's worth, the Elfmans, their
Jewish
family was
family.
Jewish.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
when
no,
I
no, absolutely. I mean, because it, and that's the other thing about this movie is that it is a blend of real old songs, Pico and Sepulveda, Bim Bam Boom, um, La Petite Coconaza, and songs written for the film. And when you
yes,
don't know when you're in high school, or when you don't know a lot of these songs, you recognize the ones that are older, and I think you assume that with the exception to the ones that were clearly written for the film, like Which is Egg, for example, you assume they're all old songs. So for me, I always assumed Yiddish Charleston was some old standard that he's singing until, as you said, I listened to the words. And I'm
yeah,
like, oh wait.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a handful of original songs, old recordings, or new lyrics to old songs.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
yeah, like Minnie the Moocher becomes Squeeze at the Moocher is probably the most obvious example.
Right.
I remember someone described a serious man once as if I didn't know that it was two Jewish directors, I'd say this was the most anti-Semitic movie I ever saw.
Right.
And when I look at that number and I see Richard Elfman kind of performing it, I go, if it's a good thing I know that it's like a Jewish guy doing this, because if
Yes.
it wasn't, holy shit.
And when he did it, when he did the shadow cast, because basically, I mean, it was a dream. It was a dream because, the film was, independent. And it used to be, and it was, the person who had the rights was this wonderful, wonderful man named Jack Murphy, who we've lost, but would just loved Jack. Just one of the kindest men I've ever met. And I reached out to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I have prints, and absolutely, and I'm so glad you're interested." I mean, this was, I think, 2011. I mean, it was before the Blu-ray, even the black and white Blu-ray release. I mean, it was the movie had not really been in the dialogue of repertory screenings and revival screenings. And but I reached out to him. I said, "Our cast wants to do a shadow cast of this," and he's like, "Oh my God, that'd be amazing," and he put me in touch with Richard. He's and I had lunch with Richard up in Hollywood, and for the first time that I met him, and he was just like, I would like to play. I'd like to be in the cast." I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah." So I talked to the shadow cast group, and they're like, "Oh my God, really?" I'm like, "Yeah." So he ended up adding. He brought out a parade of drummers to open the event. He had all these ideas. But what was amazing about his performance was, in the movie, you have Danny Elfman, who sings his song, Squeeze the Moocher. And then the very next scene is Richard Elfman doing the Yiddish Charleston. And Richard played both. So he's up there in the white suit during the Danny Elfman performance. And then there's like a fade out. And basically, he had the cast like form a barrier around him and did whatever he did to then suddenly be in a new outfit doing it was just incredible. And his glee was incredible. And I mean, it kind of recalled too that the film kind of feels like a high school production. What I mean, with the
Oh, the
sets being
sets,
so minimal, and
the
yeah,
lack of pathos in the acting, like
it feels
yeah.
like a high school production with sets that the students built and running onto stage and doing something and then
Oh
running
yeah.
off stage. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Honestly,
So,
one of my first responses once I saw the movie and it got in my system and I saw it a few times, I'm like, God, and I was in college. I'm like, this is like the perfect college production. Like,
yeah.
could you imagine putting that on stage with like your 20-year-old friends with those sets? Like,
There was
I still to this day think this show belongs on stage.
there was a live staging. There was a live
Yeah.
staging in North Hollywood. Gosh, I want to say around somewhere in the early 2000s, if memory serves. Um, and I think the theater troupe was called Sacred Fools, if I remember correctly. That I absolutely had to go, and actually went opening night with Jack, which is incredible. And it was just wonderful, man. The sets were incredible. The costuming was incredible. The audience was eating it up. And again, it was one of those situations where I think, if memory serves, every one of their shows sold out.
Good.
but then it just ends, and it's like, why isn't this movie? Oh my gosh, it's the scene right now where Joe Spinell shows up as the sailor, and Susan Tyrrell's got is playing
Which,
Squeeze's mom.
what a
I mean,
hell of a
there's so much going
cameo.
on in this movie. Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
gonna
that's
set in a minute. You just turned 11. I mean, it's just, oh my god, this
when
and
you look
Tyrell's an Academy Award nominated actress.
prior to this,
Yeah,
like,
City. I mean, she's incredible, and she's in this movie just
and the
being insane.
yeah, and then I mean, actually, this is my first Joe Spinell, but as I got older and saw Maniac and continued,
Yeah.
I can't believe they got him to show up for a day. Like,
Everything. I mean, and Hervé, who came, I guess, as a pair with Susan Tyrrell, right? But I mean,
yes,
it's just this movie is just so
and if the
glorious.
story, if I
I
remember
love you.
correctly,
I love you. Sorry. Yeah.
he, I think he was so into the production that he ended up taking his paycheck and just putting it into the production and would come and help paint sets. Like he was in it. Like he
Yeah.
understood like this is a vibe and I'm here for it.
Yes.
Um,
That's a good way of putting it. Maybe that is what you feel from the entire cast from the set. This is a vibe, and I'm here for it.
very
No,
much so.
absolutely.
Even with the Yiddish Charleston, like all of it.
All
And
of it.
you know, uh oh, I lost my thought, but anyway.
And again, it's just filled with these people with very interesting stories. I'm looking at
Oh,
Squeeze It Henderson right now, Matthew, and he went on to direct Freeway,
Freeway.
one of
Yeah.
my favorite cult classics. I mean, there's just so much going on.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I hate to say this because like it's such a cartoonish thing, but like when when Susan Tyrrell leaves and he's just like, I love you.
Yeah, I love you. I love you.
It just kind of breaks my heart. And
Yeah,
then,
followed very shortly by one of the best lines of the movie. What can chickens do? I mean, it's just the delivery.
well,
Exactly.
yeah, I was about to say I love that the chicken trails off and he goes, what can chickens do?
Exactly. But as you know, oh my God,
I
it's
mean,
just fantastic.
yeah, and also such a manic movie that to me is so mellow and actually has genuine wit. So like it works on levels. That's all I'm saying. Like
And it's
not
just
everything.
got these great, I mean, it's the deliveries. I mean, one of my favorites is when Hervé gives his big speech about he's going to have an army of zombies and yada yada, and Susan Tyrrell just goes, you think you're going to do all that? You dumb fuck. And it's the delivery of that. I mean, it's that just, in any other movie, it's like, you dumb fuck, or something where it's just, but it's everyone's delivering to like they're swinging a bat, in these moments. And the movie, you feel like it knows that. It knows that the hits and the beats are
Yeah.
funnier if they're punched up a certain way. If something's delivered, if the cadence of the dialogue goes a certain way, it feels more cartoonish or it feels funnier or it hits better. That's just, yeah,
I
so
1000%
much
agree.
skill in this movie.
Yeah, because one of the things that really strikes me about this movie, especially as I've gotten older, because one of my favorite genres of film that some of my friends maybe don't agree with me is I love trashy 80s horror movies, just like complete garbage, like not even B movies, but just like D movies. And
If
you
you're
look
like,
at a lot of movies
Hello,
that
Mary
have
Lou, Prom Night 2, or give me an example.
that's highbrow compared to like
Wow. Okay, what are we talking about then?
like God, like
Future
final
Kill?
like Children at Play,
Okay.
yeah, Final Exam, Graduation Day,
Pieces?
well, because I like Pieces. No, but I just think Mary Lou too like has some really sharp acting, but there's this sort of no offense, but like there's like this low budget, which usually means maybe not the best actors, but you get a certain level of mediocre acting or dry acting, where people just aren't really connecting to things.
Yeah.
And when I look at this movie's budget, no one is stiff, no one's not connected, no one's giving awkward line readings, and not only are they good, but there is a focus again, like you dumb fuck, like
Yeah.
everything's so sharp,
Right.
and you don't always get that when you're operating at this level. I recently watched Toxic Avenger for the first time in years,
Yeah.
and compared to some of the other movies that Troma had produced, or I don't even think it was Troma yet, but just like Lloyd Kaufman produced in the really early 80s that had your Linnea Quigley is great, but like movies that featured her, that style of acting.
Right.
I forgot like how keyed in like Toxic Avenger has the same thing. Like there are really focused, smart performances happening with the right kind of energy. And in
Right.
this movie, all these performances are operating at very, I want to say like almost lucid. Like they're not like they know exactly the right kind of energy, and something about it being in black and white too.
Yeah.
I'm expecting stiff. I'm expecting awkward. And this movie's not that. And maybe it's because so many of these people come from theater, they come from this performance troupe, the Mystic Knights, that everyone sort of understands. But it sounds weird to call it smart, but it is really smart choices for what it is.
Yeah, it's funny, as you were talking Toxic Avenger, the performance that always comes to mind for me is the female bully who just delivers everything with a giant smile. I want him dead. It just, yeah, no, she is, yeah, no, I agree with you on Toxic Avenger. Yeah, no,
All
it is.
those bad
I wonder,
guys.
huh?
The main dude is always driving the car and just like,
Oh,
like,
yeah, it's
yeah,
always like his head's about to explode.
yeah.
No, you're right, and one wonders too, as you're talking about performance troops, is I don't know that every single person in this film has experience with being like in a quote unquote performance troupe or as a performance actor, but you wonder if part of why it works is that Richard was used to directing the Mystic Knights and putting on performance shows on stage. They were on the Gong Show, as you may or not know,
Mhm.
like and I wonder if he just lent that approach to everyone on the cast of I'm going to direct this as an avant-garde performance artist, performance troupe director. Um, because you're right, there's just this play with everybody. And going back to how great the performances are, not everyone's playing the same way. So like, but they fit. So like Henderson's dad is a low key guy, smokes his cigar, shakes his fist, sings Pico and Sepulveda. He's not being overtly zany like a lot of the characters are, but he's still a caricature. He's still
Mhm.
moving like someone in a cartoon, a background character, or like the stoic dad, or whatever it is. Um, Everyone's just so great in this movie. Everyone is just so great in this movie.
Yeah, his wife is so deadpan,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
is
children, don't
which
be
is
late for school and Flash. I mean,
in
yes.
yeah, that's one of the things is like, so you look at Frenchie, you look at Flash, you look at the
Yeah.
dad, you look at the mom. They're all, it's four different levels, but it's all the same universe.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my favorites is the princess, who's the closest that verges on a tone that we consider like bad acting, but that's the charm is
Right.
even
And
in the singing. Don't you worry, mom. I
I
will
will
oversee
oversee. Well, she's
now.
a Valley girl.
Yeah.
I mean, she delivers her what do you call it? Her intonations, whatever. You know, turn to 11 Valley girl. I will oversee now.
Yeah.
There's another line that she delivers in that same kind of way, where there's that Valley lilt, whatever you want to call it. But no, totally. And then when she's just cowering in fear and doing this, I mean, yeah, no, absolutely.
Uh, I'm glad you brought. There's so much going on in this movie that like has nothing to do with the story. They're just like, but it's like salt and pepper, and the salt and pepper is what brings out all the flavor of this movie. Like for example, like Gramps. I don't know. How about Gramps always just beats people? Like at the dinner table, he's beating Flash. We're trying to rescue. He falls off the little cliff, and Flash is humping the ex queen. Meanwhile, I don't know. A gorilla comes out, and Gramps
Yep.
just beats its face until there's no face.
So it's sand, basically.
Yeah, so it's literally like we have this character squeeze it. I don't know. What if he's a chicken boy?
Oh,
Okay,
chicken. Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's not necessarily random for the sake of random. I feel like it's all thought out. But I mean, if you were to describe the plot of this movie to someone and then showed it to them, what they'd take away from it isn't the plot. What they take away is that there's like a little fat Hitler in the classroom. That
Yeah.
you know th-
Yeah. That
that
for some reason there are 3 plus size women who do nothing but eat bananas.
and then get humped.
Yeah, in hallways.
Yeah, that once the princess has been captured by Squeeze It, she is now a chicken. To taunt someone, she runs out and just squeezes her tits and slaps her butt or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
these are the things that make the movie, not the story.
absolutely. I like the idea of Squeeze It as being like the geek, the sideshows, old character in sideshows, and the
Yeah,
geek would live in a cage and eat chickens. But instead, this geek is friends with the chickens and has conversations with them. Like, it's just all this stuff. Um, but no, yeah, no, absolutely. There's all
yeah,
these weird. I mean, the Kipper, like, what is going on with the Kipper kids? There are these
yeah.
two minions or guards who are always just wearing nothing but jock straps and talk like this. I mean, it's just yeah, it's and why doesn't matter. It's just
I
this is
mean,
how the world. There's dice everywhere.
right.
There's just dice to be found everywhere. Um,
Until
you
you
know,
go through
again,
the Kipper kid shaped door, and then there they are. Or you go through and then this old rabbi comes out with the shekels. Like,
right. And
yeah,
when you
such a
cut off somebody's head, it grows wings and flies around.
right. This it's fine. Because at no point do they show like the king at a craps table. It's just dice.
Right. Yeah.
It's
There's
just
dice. They
dice.
sit on dice. There's dice on the walls. Yeah.
This is all the salt in the soup.
And there is a frog in a tuxedo
Exactly.
walking around. Yeah. It's just so good.
And also, I mean, one of the biggest salt in the soups is all the random butt stuff. But
Yeah.
the we're going down the hall and we have this little baton and just jam it up Flash's butt, whacking him on the head. Oh, there's these three random people. Better start humping them. Buzz Rod's humping the princess. Flash meets the ex-queen. The first thing he does is just start humping her, and she starts getting humped. Like, there's so much humping in this movie,
Yeah.
and none of it. There's no foreplay. There's no reason for it. Just humping. It's one of the horniest movies I've ever seen,
Oh
without
no.
actually being like lustful in any way. In
Yeah.
any
I
way.
mean, what they send there's a cage of like
They've all got pheasants.
like people in fezzes who I guess will hump you to death. And they throw one character in there, and his response to that is, "Oh, baby, fuck that asshole!" Running in there, and it's like, yeah, no, it's just so. It is a very horny film, absolutely. But
Even the two queens
I don't
fight.
mind saying this, but because I'm sure he would be like, "Yeah, Richard Elfman is a very horny man." So again, this is his brain.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I only met him the one time.
I mean, Richard Elfman, God bless him, is a child. He's not childish. That's not what I'm saying. But you talk 5 minutes and you see the wide-eyed, is it that he is basically his artist is just always present and on the surface, because I think there is a childlike play to being an artist. Maybe that's what you pick up on, but there is that wide-eyed desire to play all the time. And again, there is a sexual element to that, I think. He's a very horny man, but you'll just know this because he's got no filter. But it all blends into what this movie is, which is like I think you said it perfectly earlier when you said this is his id on screen. I mean, it
feels like
just
it, doesn't it?
is.
Yeah.
And it must have been so thrilling to put this together, and not just to make it, but just to have all these people. I mean, I'm sure he admired Susan Tyrrell, and certainly loved that his family members and his wife were in this, but like got to get them all to create this. Must have been such a joy.
I bet. I would. I mean, I know making a movie and being on set can be hard, but when you look at the end result, I'm sure he's full of. I mean, you don't want to make a human cartoon like this and then worry about like, well, what are the sets like? No, it's a cartoon. Let's paint the sets.
Yeah,
and they're phenomenal.
Yeah, and let's have fun with getting creative.
And it's your wife painting them and Hervé's helping, and these are one of the oldest tricks. I mean, you go back to like, I don't know, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, like it works if that's your intention. And in a modern era, I mean, granted, this was a few years after, but like like in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, when Pee-wee, opens the little thing and it reveals his bike. There's no
Yeah,
spotlight on the bike. It's a black wall with a white paint line that's supposed to be a spotlight.
yeah,
And I think it's funny that two Elfman movies do that. But
yeah, no, definitely. And the I was thinking right now of going back to Eraserhead. I mean, these were first time filmmakers that in creating the world that was in their brain, just built it, painted it, set designed it with like the freedom to make it both recognizable but clearly stylized in a very specific auteurish way. And I love the little touches, like, hey, I want chunks of banana all over this hallway as we march down it to the beat of a song. I want this hallway to just have random dice into the architecture, or like this one thing after another, that it's just like, why not? This is my world, and I'm just going to be spontaneous with it, and get creative with it. It's an admirable film at that level.
I agree completely.
This is my brain. Come along on the journey. Maybe you'll love it, maybe you'll hate it, but this is my brain. You know.
Um, I, I think one of the weirder, like, so obviously you got
Excuse
big band music. You've got that era. You've got this Fleischer era cartoons. And through that cartoonish thing, you've also got your own like horniness.
me. Yeah.
And you're also adapting from the stage this sort of like it's like a French circus, you know, commedia dell'arte, which also had its own 30s jazz, and you're bringing that to life. But also there's just like the general, like the farce energy running through it all. Like you said, like a scene will end and just like the next scene we're off and running. You will switch very blatantly from like Squeeze at the Moocher to like Yiddish Charleston to like, oh, do you see that princess? And now we're in a hallway marching and we're humping with batons. One of my favorite little, like, it's just so cartoonishly theatrical, like when Squeeze It's crying and in the classroom and he goes
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to his seat and you can tell he's got little sponges
Yeah.
in his and they're just dripping out of his face.
And there's
I,
and
I can
then
watch.
and then and in that scene too, and throughout the film, there's these little cutaways of just inventiveness. Like he's crying, things, and people are just laughing,
Mhm.
you know. But you quick cut to the barber who's just cutting with his scissors. Quick cut to one of the Kipper kids in pigtails with their nose, turned up, just like laughing, like all the leopard lady, all these different things. And one of my favorite just random cut to moments is there's like some chaos happening in the Forbidden Zone, and just for a second they cut to the Henderson's mom sitting
Mhm.
at the control herself, looking at a clock, and the minute hand is spinning like crazy, and then we're back to the Forbidden Zone, and it's just there's all these little moments that are just wait, like and
Yeah.
why
Is that
why
supposed to
is
make sense? I don't know. She knows something weird is happening in the Forbidden Zone.
right.
That's her reason for going down there. I don't know.
Right.
Fuck it.
I mean, I think it's the implication, but it's like, but it's also, is she psychic? Is that clock? I mean, it doesn't matter.
Oh
It's
no.
just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this
no.
is,
This isn't.
it's in there. But
Yeah.
going back to what you were saying about cutting between the scenes and the music, I mean, beyond the score and sorry, the soundtrack and on all these songs, I think the score is amazing. I think the instrumental pieces that Danny Elfman wrote for the movie, the love theme that you mentioned earlier, the piano theme, um, there's the music that plays when they're in, like in the what do you call it, where the throne is. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, there's all
Do,
these
do, do,
great
do,
little
do,
the
do.
factory song that's like very steamy.
Oh yeah.
You know, um, it's got this incredible score too. I mean, you could feel Elfman's craft at writing scores. I mean, people talk about Pee-wee's Big Adventure being the first score he
Yeah.
did.
But
Certainly was his first full-length score to a film, but there's score music in this. It's pretty phenomenal. And of course they played and he, worked on all songs. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
The difference being that like it's him and the rest of the Mystic Knights versus, you know, at a soundstage at Warner Brothers with an orchestra, you know.
right.
But
That's incredible. Yeah.
there's something I don't want to necessarily give the movie like too much credit. I just find it interesting through 2023 lens
Yeah.
that something that just really strikes me now when Squeeze It's first in the trash
Yeah.
and Frenchie mentions his twin brother and he immediately goes, "My sister."
Right.
And then Flash is like, "No, he just dresses like a broad." Like, I'm not gonna go and call this movie progressive, but it is interesting how like just dead serious he corrects. He goes,
Oh,
"My sister,"
yeah.
because to him, if my brother dresses like a woman and identifies as a woman, I'm gonna call him my sister because that's, you know, that's what she wants, basically.
Yeah. And then
It's so
when
matter of fact.
Flash uses a derogatory word about the sister and Squeeze's immediate response is, "You're the
Yeah.
derogatory word." Like, he's he's defending his sister, which I think is awesome. But no, I agree. That's a very good point. Like it's one of those moments I love in the film, but I don't think I'd given it that level of credit. You're right.
Yeah.
You're really right. Yeah. He doesn't,
It's
and he doesn't say, you know, he, yeah, it's just that simple. He's my, that's my
matter
sister.
of fact,
Period. Yeah. It's just so great. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
which, you know, if Squeeze It can understand that in 1980, you know,
Yeah.
maybe some other people could learn that now. It's just
Yes.
that simple. It's just
Amen.
that simple,
Well,
everybody.
and what's funny is now that I'm thinking about this more, there are male actors who play female characters in the film, like the teacher, like the Kipper kids in class. One assumes that they're playing cis-born female characters,
Sure.
right? Um, but they make it a point that Renee is not an example, like other characters, of a male actor playing a cis-born female character. Renee is identifies as a woman and is his sister, which I dig. Now that I'm thinking about it, I dig that too. I do think you have both the play of the Shakespeare, the old Victorian. Let's put this male and female clothes and have them play a woman, and let's put this male and female clothes and have them play a female. Which is
Yeah.
a transgendered person. So I mean, yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
I don't even know if when they were making this movie, they were really going for that. I just,
Yeah, but it has both. Is
absolutely.
my point, which is amazing.
Yeah.
You're right. You're totally right. I hadn't even considered that.
I,
Because it could have easily just made Renee his sister and not pointed out that it's a man and that it's a cis-born male in female clothing.
yeah.
They could have just had him play Renee and left it at that, but they go out of their way to make that point. You're right. You're totally right. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
And then Renee commits it so hard that, you know, she gets cramps and like foams at the mouth and all that. So
Yes. Pseudo menstrual.
But-
En route to safety, Renee is struck by pseudo menstrual cramps. I can't
and
stand it.
all
The
the
bananas. Yeah. I can't
Well,
stand it.
I forget who I watched this with because I've watched it with many people over the years, but it was a female. She turned to me, she goes, "They can feel like that sometimes, though. Like that's like it's a farce of a movie, but
Right.
that's not far off."
Yes, and that's one of two menstrual jokes in the film. Yeah.
For what it's worth, I feel like I could watch a whole movie set in the classroom because I just
It's my favorite. Yeah.
everything up.
The classroom scenes, the A is the alphabet song.
The alphabet, yeah.
Probably my favorite musical moment performance.
Oh, it's so catchy
in the whole film. It's the
And
song
then-
is catchy. The way they twist the words around with the F and the G, the delivery of the song, and then when it becomes the dance portion,
Oh yeah.
and the guy's up there doing the robot, and the teacher
But the
starts
teacher
doing the
can meet
robot.
him with it. And
Yeah, the teacher starts to do the robot, and then and then somebody flies across the room, like all of
And
it.
again,
the clock is spinning,
you
with
want to
knives.
talk about like the id, like he's like, well, I want him to fly back to their seat. And any other production might be like, well, that sounds expensive. Like, no, we're gonna get a harness, we're gonna shoot at a different frame rate, and he's gonna like land.
Yeah.
Like that was a labor to do
Oh yeah.
for a
The
1 second shot.
candelabra. I want a guy suspended over the table We have to find someone with good ab strength because they need to maintain themselves in a flat position, even though they're only being suspended by their hips. And that's my candelabra for this movie. Make it happen.
The movie is full of things that like I would have gone like if I'm a producer, I'm like, well, you can cut that, right? That'll save us a couple $100.
Right.
The movie doesn't do that.
No.
And also the candelabra. I mean, you want to talk about a cartoon? You got the 1, 2, 3 setup. 1, they're suspended holding candles. 2, they're droopy holding the candles. 3,
Right.
when we come back, it's a skeleton. Like setup, payoff.
A
Comedy
skeleton
101.
with a large bone protruding from its hips. Yeah. That's so great.
Just yeah, like we're getting ready to we're like, well, I want to dress these students. Okay, can we make that one a Hitler? I'm sorry, what? I want to make that one a Hitler. Is it going to pay off in any way? No, I just want one to be a Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
It makes as much sense as a cheetah girl with little.
You got someone that's actually it's
makeup.
funny, one of the classroom scenes is playing right now. So you got the cheetah lady, you got a couple of guys in the back left who look like Nicaraguan Sandinista guerrillas. You've got obviously the guys playing craps in the back, the 2 guys in sort of white t-shirts that are Mexican in the front row, one of whom came out to the shadow cast and is still an accomplished actor. His name will come to me in a minute. He's such a great guy. Hitler's the barber. That's right. He's got the scissors. Like it's like all this stuff going on. And then of course a Boy Scout, but that's how he dresses. The guy in the crown, the King's Crown outfit. And it's just so great.
And the fact that the window is this paper thing that you dive through, but we add the glass sound effect.
Yep. Teacher, gotta love this teacher.
Yeah.
We have a new student. Flash's sister Susan will come and tell her her studies in France.
Just perfect. And it's also it's like Andy Dick, but with like this like foam.
Yes.
This like thick foam around the lip that's then painted in.
It looks like there's a lot. She's got I think this is just her lips with gloss and then painted over. There's an outline, so it looks like they're kind of popping out.
Yeah, it almost looked like a silly string to me. Like that's how
when Frenchie's singing the song, and when every time they cut back to the class, just everyone is having such like there's that wonderful shot of the teacher, but everyone's just having a great time.
Dude, my favorite cutaway is when they cut to Flash just shooting up, and he's
so great.
I mean, also that's the other thing I love about this is the whole universe. We were talking about, like some men playing women. Just all of like I also like the fact that Gramps is played by a young man and Flash, his grandson, is played by an old man. So you've got these age swaps that just who cares? Like whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell that
that's high school. That's high school.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the father also
every kid plays an adult. What's that?
The father also has very theatrical makeup because he's not that old. So like
right.
The age casting, the gender casting in this is all just up in the air and scrambled. Yeah. None of it matters.
No, and I mean that is a regional production. That's a high school production where sometimes it's like, what, we're gonna use makeup and a wig to make this person older. Because,
absolutely.
That's
the only accurate casting in this is they actually cast a French woman to play a French woman. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
And her accent's so thick, people thought it was fake until you find out, no, she's French.
Nope. Yeah. Oh my God. You ain't taking me nowhere, you honky bitch.
One of my favorite lines. That whole exchange. Well, he was cheating.
That was cheating.
So I had to kill him. Like
that does it, Johnny. You're going straight to Principal Yodelbean's office.
Yes, it's the same thing as like you dumb fuck. Like it just comes out of like you ain't taking me nowhere, you honky bitch. In fact, the only thing, the only record scratch for me, and it doesn't. I'm never going to disown the movie over it. It's just as time has moved on, that leads into a shootout in a school, and I go,
all right.
I don't think it was no intent. It's just a product of it has nothing to do with the movie's intention. It's only the product of the world we live in. But when I see a comedy of a school shootout, I just go, it's not fun.
Well, and it's just so sad to consider that, and I'm sure I could be wrong here, or that there's one or whatever, but this is, I don't know that we had that problem back here.
Mm-mm.
And again, there may have been isolated incidents, but the proliferation of those horrible situations, this predates that by quite a
Yeah.
bit. Um, and so I don't know if, which is why modern films where there's a
Mhm.
thing, whether there's a school shooting, whether that's done for comedy or just done as an afterthought that's not integral to the film, it's hard for me not to be like, oh, that just made me feel uncomfortable, you
Yeah.
know. But no, you're right. I could totally see that.
Yeah, and that's definitely I'd never even that was never even on my radar for a long time. But I just watched this again few days ago, and we're like,
Yeah. I mean, and what it's the randomness of inside this house in the basement. There is a portal. There's like a being John Malkovich portal to this other dimension. But it's an obvious portal. There's a giant mouth mural
mm-hmm.
in there that you could easily just slip into if you slip on a skate.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and then you come out of the mural of a butt. You basically come out as a piece of excrement because
Yeah,
you've been
and there's little log-shaped pillows.
yes, because you've been through the digestive system. And then the first thing you got is the Kipper kids in their boxer shorts with their gloves. I mean, it's just and that wonderful backdrop of the drawn in characters. It's just,
Yeah.
so much. There's
Like
so much. This movie
I,
is just incredible.
I've watched the making of, that was okay. So like, yeah, I had the VHS that I ripped from Blockbuster. I had the first DVD that came out, which I think was like put up by Fantoma or someone. Then I had the first Blu-ray that came out before the director's cut. There was like that first Blu-ray that had the old like the color version, but not the
Right. That's
non-blackface color version.
right. Yeah.
And there was like a making of on it. But one thing I would love if I ever met Richard Elfman, like how do you sell this to someone as an investor? Because I feel like you've got to sell the vibe. Because if you again, you can't describe like, well, there's this family, you see, and in their basement, there's a portal to the sixth dimension. Like
Right.
that's not well, why is there a portal? It doesn't matter. Do people fall in it? Doesn't matter. Just does the mom know? Well, the mom knows, but the daughter doesn't. Just shut up. It's just there's a port. We're just it's an excuse to go do weird shit. Don't
Yeah.
don't fucking worry about it. That to me, that's a hard sell.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. And it's one of those movies that you're watching it and you're like, I don't know that there's one note in this film that communicates Richard Elfman was aware that he's going to need to sell this, and so he took that into consideration by ensuring that this film has blank. Whatever that blank is, it's not in this movie. It
No.
is singularity and adherence to vision. Uh, yeah, this doesn't feel like a movie that was made to be sold to anybody. But it's just not. It's just play. It's just play the whole movie, and
Yeah, it's you're asking funding for me and my friends to play.
yeah, no, absolutely, and get creative and to create. I mean, to listen to immerse ourselves in the music that we love and recreate it and create a world out of it, and then in that to create sets that are the world we want to create. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
this is what we want to do. And yeah,
and you're lucky as an investor that you're investing because there are people who maybe are just going to fart around like this who don't have talent,
right.
but there is an immense like when you get these people playing and building these sets and doing these songs, and you get something that to me is endlessly creative and imaginative and
I mean, is
watchable.
there one bad throwaway song in this entire movie?
No, nor
There really
performance,
isn't.
not one wasted line.
No, I mean, you think of other sort of cult musicals, Grease 2, The Apple.
Mm.
They're fun, but there are dull moments. There are slow moments. There are songs that's like, oh, this is the pee break song.
Oh,
This does not happen in this movie. I mean, Repo, fun
yeah.
movie, but not every song sticks. Not every scene sticks.
As we
This
used to say in high school in the 90s, all killer, no filler.
It's yes, it is. That's the Camp Frida slogan this year. It's funny.
Hey,
Yeah, but yeah, no, absolutely. It's tight. at the same time that it's unhinged. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it is just solid, solid entertainment.
Yeah, I forget the runtime, but I know it's under 90, right? It's like 85 or
Yeah, I
80 or
think
something like that.
I'll look it up because I'm curious about that because I remember it was like surprisingly short. It's always a trip when 74 minutes.
So there you go.
They
That's like,
pack a lot in
yeah,
74 minutes, or premiere long version 76 minutes, theatrical 73. But no, there are movies like that. Like Fargo comes to mind, where every time I watch Fargo, which is so dense with plot and twists, and it just feels like such an epic yarn. It's 98 minutes long. That trips me out every time. That a movie can be so efficient in its storytelling and put in so much, and then you realize this is a short movie. Like, it's 74 minutes long. That's just such a trip because there's so many numbers and so many set pieces, and it's not like an opera where it just jumps from number to number. There's dialogue in the middle. There's it's yeah, it's just maybe, and that might be why it's so effective and solid, is because there's no wasted moments in this movie.
yeah. You went with Fargo. My go-to is Train Spotting.
Oh, how
Train
long is
Spot is like a tight 90 minutes.
wow.
But I
Yeah.
mean, emotional, like all the bullshit they go through. I mean, I'm not saying the movie feels long. I'm just saying that there's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I cannot believe Train Spotting is a 90-minute drama.
Same. I didn't know that. Yeah, looking back. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because there's character arcs throughout the movie. There's his journey. I mean, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
So yay for efficiency. I've always like people will get upset about the length of a movie, and I don't really get upset about the length of a movie. I get upset about like whether the length isn't justified.
King
If
Kong.
if there's a good example. Did King Kong need to be 3 hours, the Peter Jackson one? But certain movies, I'm not saying it being 90 minutes is good. I'm just saying that if the story you're telling is only a 90-minute story, I'm glad you told it 90 and didn't draw it out. If I certain movies that are 3 hours deserve to be 3 hours, I go great. Um, but
Yeah, no, I
is the length worth what you're doing? Uh, and I'm just shocked because to me, when I hear movies 75 minutes, I think like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. Like to me,
no.
the Disney movies are like 75 minutes.
Yeah, no, I was literally just looking up. That's funny. The runtime for The Little Mermaid, the original Little Mermaid, which is, in my opinion, one of the great, great Disney movies, Disney animated films, is 83 minutes long, and tells, such a wonderful story. The movie version of The Little Mermaid is 2 hours and 15 minutes long. We've gotten to this point where it's got to be longer. It's got to be longer than 2 hours. It's got to, and then we still get shorter movies, but I think that's a testament to why sometimes things work because they're perfect. Like there's
Yes.
not a wasted moment in the Disney 1989 Little Mermaid. It's wonderful songs, wonderful story, wonderful journey, done in 83 minutes, and it's sublime. And then people talk about the new Little Mermaid. Oh, it had its moments, but it's kind of boring. It's like, and they cut songs, but it still manages to be over half an hour longer. You know,
Yeah. Well, okay, so like the sort of idea that seemed to happen at the mid 2000s is that if we want our movies to feel like epic, we need to
right.
make them over 2 hours. I would look at say like Pirates of the Caribbean 2 or 3 and go, you could have cut a bunch of that out. You didn't need to be 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah,
Avengers Endgame though, there's not a scene I would cut out of Avengers Endgame.
John
That
Wick
movie
4.
justified its length based on
Yeah.
what its story was.
John Wick
Whereas,
4. John Wick 4, I went to see knowing it was 3 hours long, or just shy of, but I trusted that it would work because the first three are just, I think, incredible movies. And it did for me. I don't know about everyone else, but it did. I'm like, that I don't know that I would have cut anything from this. Maybe moments, whatever, but like set pieces, scenes, it just moved so well.
mhm.
And I didn't walk out of there either feeling like it was an epic, like, oh my God, that was so much to take in. It just was a breeze, and it would just happen to be a 3 hour breeze.
Yeah. I love when a 3 hour movie doesn't feel 3 hours because it's again, you're telling the story the way you need to tell it. Whereas
Yeah,
I will admit in Little Mermaid, I would shift a little bit. And towards the end, I'm like, did this movie need to be this long?
right. No,
Not against long movies. Did this story and this production need to be this long?
well, and I was a very early lover fan of Peter Jackson's because I love Meet the Feebles,
Mhm.
and Heavenly Creatures is in my top 10. I mean, it's
Oh
a
yeah.
masterpiece. And there's another movie that needs to be talked about more. I can't book it. It's not bookable. I mean, and
Hmm.
it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Unless I can't book it digitally. But the um, the King Kong, Lord of the Rings original trilogy, even the uncut versions, especially, frankly, are incredible and dense, and I love them. And then King Kong comes out, and it's 3 hours long, and I'm like, I didn't need this first hour. I mean, there's a lot going on, but it just, we spent an hour getting to the island.
Uh,
Um, but to follow that up by taking a single book, The Hobbit, and making it three-hour chapter films from the get-go, I'm like, is this him now? Is he doing the thing where everything needs to be very long? And I don't know about you, but the ways I feel about the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, I feel opposite about the Hobbit trilogy. There's moments, absolutely, but like this adherence, this idea that length is, length is important. It's not how long it is, it's how you use it. And same for Forbidden Zone. I mean, Forbidden Zone is just drawing us back to the movie. It's tight. It doesn't need to be a moment longer, and anything that they added in, like if for whatever reason they had to meet a 90-minute minimum time,
right.
say, would have not been part of his vision.
Right.
And therefore, this is his vision. It's just incredible.
Yeah. There's no little bit in Forbidden Zone that's like, well, they escape in wheelbarrow. I mean, wooden barrels down a river, and then we go, okay, let's do a 15-minute
Yes,
waterfall chase.
cartoonish, impossible
There's
barrel.
there's no thing where like, oh, the princess is getting tortured. Let's torture her for 10 minutes, and we go, oh, why is this happening? Why is this going on? You
Yes,
know.
absolutely.
And also, I love that the torture device is literally a fucking balloon tied to like a rod
With little animated
with little
flashes.
animated things, and just don't think about the implication of what it's supposed to. Thankfully, it doesn't actually occur, but
Oh, damn, the
Also,
fuse blew. Yeah.
but before we go, one thing we didn't address was just the fact that the choice between all these characters' costumes is like, I don't know, the princess. How about you just wear these panties? Anything else? No. The princess is just always topless. Why? Don't know why. Because Richard Elfman, that's why. I don't know.
And let's just randomly throw Mickey Mouse ears on people.
Right. So many
Namers
Mickey
them
ears.
throughout the film, but then suddenly Frenchie's wearing Mickey Mouse ears, and let's just have fun with that visual, which again, it's childhood. It's a
Yeah,
childhood, it evokes childhood,
there is a childish horniness to things, and I think the princess is definitely one of them. Weird
and there's so
comparison,
much,
but
there's a lot of people of sticking out your tongue.
yes,
There's a lot of that throughout the movie. The princess
Frenchie
does,
to her dad. Yeah,
yeah, Frenchie
yeah,
does it, like high school behavior. I mean, sorry, elementary school campus behavior. Yeah,
very much so, and that's definitely
yeah.
part of it. Which you could tell Richard Elfman revels in as far as what he considers entertaining or what he considers humorous. Um, and then also, I just like that. Lastly, this is a very theatrical thing to do, but it ends with. I know they used to use that melody to end Mystic Night shows, but that last song is like a curtain call. There's dancing, and then the cast all comes out on the steps,
Yep.
and they come towards the camera, and Dad's holding his own cross that he was on before, and they're all just sort of like, "Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Yeah,
watching our movie." Kaboom.
and it's was it Busy Berkeley-ish? You got the
Oh,
can dancers that are chained together. Yeah, everyone's singing a line and a melody. We're for nasty weather, we're not chasing pies, or it's like everyone's got their moment. It's the one day more of the movie.
yeah.
It's like, and no, absolutely, it's a great way to end the film, and it is a curtain call. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. what a lovely way to end it, I think.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything else to say on this movie?
It's just so wonderful. And you know, and I gotta say, you know, I I've really enjoyed this experience because you know it's a movie that me and the cast of Rocky that did the Shadow cast and that friends will talk about in a sort of zany, oh my God, it's so much fun. Oh my God, or sing along. But I don't think I've ever talked about it in you know, there was in this element of really looking at the respect for the art form of this movie and to talk about the fact that aside from being fun and crazy and one of my favorites, that we can have a dialogue about how impressive the production of this movie is at a filmic level and how and you know an auteurism and you know as I had this dialogue with you, you know a lot of those thoughts were coming to mind very organically and immediately when I'm like I don't really think I recognize just how much there is to genuinely admire about the artistry behind this movie and within this movie, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Eraserhead because I've thought of that myself, and I'm glad I'm not the only one. That this movie can be brought up in the same conversation, in the same sentence with Eraserhead, not just because they're black and white, and not just because they're weird.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, it
That
is
there is enough craft to this that it's worth bringing up.
it's two, you know, auteur filmmakers who are taking the complexities of the world, the universe of their brains and how they, you know, whether it's their dreams, their desires, their, you know, and fearlessly getting a group together of set designers, actors, prop makers, and putting it on film.
Yeah.
You know, in as genuinely and personally authentic a way that they can without consideration of how will this be processed by the audience, how will it be taken in. It's hey, hope you maybe hope you like it, but I don't, this is this is me,
right,
it's my film, you know,
and
like,
this is me, and one of them is like, here is like my fear of becoming a father, and then the other one is, this is me, this is the cartoons that live in my head, and like, oh, Susan Tyrrell's nipple is out again, that's what we want to, you know.
Yeah, and this is the world. I mean, Richard, you know, he, you know, perfect example. He invited at some point me and some of the Rocky cast to join other people for dinner at his place, and he is a great cook. He's really into cuisine, and he made this amazing dinner. But he made this punch, this rum punch that was smoking because it was dry ice in it, and you could tell the production of it was very important to him. It was in a special urn and all this stuff. And then halfway through dinner, all of a sudden, this like mariachi band comes in, and he'd hired drummers, and the whole dinner was a production. Come to find out, he does this all the time.
Wow.
He loves to create zany experiences. He's got costumes at his place. You want to throw a hat on? Like, he likes to create a universe around himself that mirrors the world I think he would love to live in.
That's nice.
And yeah, and I think that's, you know, it made me appreciate Forbidden Zone all the more I got to know him, because I'm like, this is the world. Not, I don't think it'd be simplistic to say this is how he sees the world. Maybe he sees that in people, or he sees the potential, or you know, so much as this is what the world would look like if Richard Elfman, you know, got the gauntlet from the Avengers movies and snapped his finger and created the world he wanted us to all live in. This is it. It's people just running around in costume, having a good time, singing songs, collaborating, and zaniness around every corner, some unexpected visual or sonic joy that maybe doesn't make sense, but strikes a chord of mirth and sort of like insanity. And then yes, a lot of horniness. Absolutely.
Yeah, all those words and
Yeah.
horniness. Yeah.
Yes. No, it's awesome. It's an awesome film, and I'm just glad it's getting this kind of focus. And again, folks, can it be worth watching? It's just such a blast.
Yeah, go find it.
Anything else you want to add about this wonderful film?
No, I feel like we laid it all out there, man.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add, not add, but just I think I think the UHF was the first time I saw the Kipper Kids, but I love that they're between this between this their song and Adam's Family and UHF, like
Yeah.
this little trifecta of like, yeah, we make goofy sound. I love that they had a career,
Yeah.
a performance,
One
and
of
that
them married Bette Midler, if memory.
yeah,
Yeah, which is
yeah,
wild. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I love that that's forever on film too. Especially because that maniacal, that it's such a bully laugh, in the classroom with the,
Yes.
again, dialed up to 11. But yeah, no, the whole movie, everything you said, everything we've already said, just a real pleasure. Because
Great.
yeah, I didn't when you mentioned that, because I know a few people who have shown this to, but uh, I love that I got to sit down with you and talk about this. This was great.
Thank you, man. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It's like I said, as soon as you said, what was the first one you said you suggested we should do?
Yeah, I'm still thinking we should do this next time, folks.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about doing basketball.
Right, 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 right.
But
Yeah, no, I mean, and if you look at the list I sent you, it is a combination of genuinely critically acclaimed, Oscar winning, Oscar nominated, the films with things like Forbidden Zone and basketball. And I don't know
yeah,
if just one of the guys was on there or what.
I don't want to say highbrow and lowbrow, but like highbrow and movies.
Right, right, right. But I loved that you jumped to basketball first, and then which I was down, like, but as soon as you said Forbidden Zone, I'm like, into absolutely. Like I would love to have this kind of a dialogue about that movie because again, it is really special to me. And it's just, I think, really part of my brain. And frankly, also a world I love visiting. I love just immersing myself in this world. And again, as I was talking to you, I'm like, I wonder how much of that has to do with how my brain works, how like
Oh yeah.
firing off it always is, and just how the cadence of the film, the surrealism and insanity of the film, the music, mirrors
I
the pattern of my brain.
I would love to, for some, not me, but like some psychologist
Sure.
to actually dig into that, as far as the rapidity of, is that a word? The rapid fire nature of scene to scene versus the intake for an ADD brain, and that is worth exploring.
No, fascinating. It's like music,
Someone out there is a psychiatrist.
Yeah,
Do it.
comment below or whatnot. Yeah, I mean, music works that way. There have been studies about music, in relation to personality types and the quadrant and whatnot. But no, you're right. I mean, musicals, or styles of film. No, that would be really fascinating to.
Yeah. I'll throw the link down below for the Frida, that people can check out the theater.
Oh, thank you, appreciate
and
that.
the fact that if you want to like donate to the Frida, that information is there too. But do you have any socials that you would like to?
Sure. I mean, our Instagram, our X, and our Threads is all just the Frida Cinema.
Cool.
With the and Frida is FRIDA, folks. So
I'll include
I was
those.
a temptation to put an E in there for some, because like Frida or whatever, but no, it's FRIDA. So the Frida Cinema. And yes, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that relies on donations from film lovers such as yourself. Donations to the Frida are tax deductible and greatly, greatly appreciated.
There you have it. And also, if you've never been, just go check it out. It's where I saw first, I've seen a million movies there, but I did see The Forbidden Zone with Richard Elfman and the Shadow Cast and got this shirt. It was such a great night. And he met people afterwards. And like you said, with that childlike glee, like I took a photo with him and it's like a 6-year-old kid with a birthday cake. Like every time I see, like, I follow.
Were you at the one where we actually gave him a birthday cake on stage? It was his birthday.
I don't think so.
Yeah, there was one, I didn't even know what his birthday was, and it was the second or third time we did it. I reached out to him, hey Richard, we want to do it again. Okay, let me see if I can make myself available. What night? And I gave him the date that we were to. He goes, oh, that's my birthday. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, no, I'm in. What a great way to celebrate my birthday. I'm like,
sure.
Oh, right on. So he came down for his birthday on one of them. And I mean, just like I said, from that first meeting, sitting across from him, I just saw this very, very giddy boy sitting across from me. And there I have that part of me. But it's mirrored. It's complemented by maybe because I run an organization, I don't know, but I have, I've had to put some big boy pants on, but but he's got a career. He had a blog, he cooks. I mean, he's obviously he's making films. I mean, but there is no, it's just there all the time. The big eyes, the smile, the sort of like wanting to immediately start to do the thing that you're talking about doing, where he can almost not restrain himself at the table because he's like, what are we doing yet? Okay, oh, how would you feel about this? Like he just gets so excited and it's infectious. And I just love that. I love that energy. He's probably got one of the greatest energies I've ever met from somebody, because it's intoxicating, but it's also a reminder that you can never, if you choose to, can choose to hold on to that for the rest of your life, and do great creative things with it.
And that's comforting to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, sir.
And
truly appreciate it.
Had
Anytime
fun.
we talk about cool movies, man, I'm down.
Right on. Until next time, folks.